Welcome to this week's episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm the host, Eric Bishop. This is a place where interesting people come to share their stories. I hope you'll support tonight's guest. As for myself, I'm a father, author, travel enthusiast, and lover of the outdoors. If you'd like to see some of my creative works, my novels, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks for joining us tonight, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. Tonight, I am super happy to have John Gilstrap on the program. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, thank you
Cold, but good.
Well, thank you for coming on. I met you, and I don't remember exactly what year this is. So I went to Thriller Fest between 2017 and 2019. So I know one of those times I
Okay.
met you, and you were you, man, and I can't single anyone out and say no one was, but you were again one of those authors that I had read your books, I had heard about you and your success, and I could just walk up to you and talk to you, and there wasn't a barrier there, which to me, getting into writing at that point, I hadn't been published yet or anything. It was so neat to realize that you could go to a conference or go to a book event and you could talk to your favorite author. And, I think if you go up to George Clooney, he's probably going to blow you off pretty quickly. More, maybe not. But your favorite writers don't do that. And that was really another cool experience.
Well, I think Thriller Fest, BoucherCon, Left Coast Crime, the big conferences.
Yeah,
People are there to meet other writers and to certainly sort of get together with the writers that we
sure.
know. And I've always thought, and for anybody who's listening to this, and if you're struggling to get into this business, you go to one of these conferences, don't sit with all the other writers that haven't been published yet. Go and sit in with the group of folks who have been there, get to know them, and
Yeah,
ask questions. Don't be hawking your book necessarily while you're there,
right.
but you want to become, if you want to be, you want to hang out with other authors, which is one of the great privileges of my life, is to be
Hmm.
able to do that.
Yes.
Then it's a good thing to do.
It absolutely is. And for anyone that's going, at least every time I've gone in, BoucherCon's been a couple years. That's the last one I went to. I plan on doing one conference this year. I just got to narrow it down. But the bar, find the bar, go later after dinner, and you'll be surprised who you can sidle up next to and have a remarkable conversation.
I will say this, and it's going to sound facetious, and maybe it is like 5% facetious. 100% of all business is conducted at the bar.
Yes,
This is the entertainment business.
right.
This is when not you're not going to be signing contracts at the bar, but that's where you're going to meet the person who says, "Sure, send me your manuscript,"
Yep.
or it's I'd love to blurb your book, or just you get to know each other. 100% of all business in my industry, in our industry, is conducted at the bar. You don't have to drink,
Right.
but skip the panels during the day if that's what you have to do to stay at the bar until
Yeah.
midnight, because that's really where all the good stuff happens.
One year I was there, Adam Hamdy and I, and there was a couple others that were around the table. We got kicked out of the Hyatt bar there at
Oh, that's not a high bar.
no, no, it's not. No, but no, not kicked. Well, we kicked out. Like we closed it down. It was I don't
Ah,
two, three. I don't know what time it was. They
hmm.
finally came and they're like, "Gentlemen, we need to start cleaning up." It's like, oh, okay. I guess we have to go. So no, we
This is the
we we've
Hyatt at
enjoyed
Grand
it.
Central.
Yes, Hyatt Grand Central. Yes, they've moved. I haven't been in the conference. Now they're in Times Square, I believe.
They have moved. It's not in Times Square.
Oh,
That's
it's
where
not in
it
Times Square.
was, and then they moved it to. I was just there. It's still in Midtown,
Okay,
but it's not with Superman and Spider-Man. That's where it was. The Sheraton, I think, is where it was year before,
the year before. Okay,
and that would have been terrible. But a
yeah,
story about the Hyatt, the Grand Hyatt, which is the Grand
Grand
Central
Hyatt. Yep,
Station,
yep.
and it's not there anymore. They've renovated it and they moved on. But at that time, when I first started going there, which is uh, ITW is what, 20 years old, so I've been to pretty much all of the
Hmm.
Thriller Fest. the first couple that they had is in the summertime.
Okay.
And you'd have like one or two bartenders for 1,500 writers who want to get drunk.
Right.
And so at the end, it got to the point where you were not allowed to take a vacation. If you worked on the F&B staff, food and beverage staff at the
Hmm.
Hyatt, you were not allowed to take a vacation during Thriller Fest because they've generated so much money.
That's a smart, hey, just like with selling books, you got to find the way to do it. And for if you're in that type of an industry, you want to be there with authors and serve them drinks until, you have to kick them out late at night or whatever.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, hey, let's dive into. I always think it's fascinating because every author has a start, and I love to kind of explore what got you into writing, but also like for the other thing I found, and I'm no exception to it either, is most authors have a career before they ever get published. So talk about what John did before John became, a best-selling author, and then how did you transition into, hey, I'm gonna write a book?
Well, the last part is easy because that never happened. There was a transition. I've always written. It's always been sort of a
Okay,
recreational thing for me.
gotcha.
While I mean, really early, uh, elementary school, junior high school,
Hmm.
when my family would be sitting around, it was all, one big room, right? And everybody would be watching television. I'd be off to the side writing stories.
Hmm.
That's just, I've written hundreds of stories over time. So I
Okay.
never really wanted, it was never my plan to become a professional writer. It was
Hmm.
just a way to play with my imaginary friends, I guess.
Yeah,
I never really
absolutely.
thought about it at the time.
Gotcha.
But, and I flirted with the idea when I was going to college. I went to William and Mary, and I flirted with the idea of, well, maybe I'll become a professional novelist. What do you think, Dad? Well, that was a very short conversation. So, I mean, as it was, I was a history major, so I was already doomed to failure.
Right.
And so I graduated, and I wanted to go into, I thought I wanted to go into journalism, and I really didn't. I didn't like journalism.
Hmm.
So I got involved with the fire and rescue service. It's volunteer fire and rescue service, but we ran
Gotcha.
14,000 calls a year. So we were busier than a lot of big city fire departments.
Hmm.
And I loved it. I love the whole, uh, I've always been service oriented. My family is service oriented. My dad was in the Navy, and his dad was in the Army, and
Okay.
that kind of thing. And in the 70s, when I was coming up, going to the military just didn't seem like the right thing to do. But I
Yeah.
did want to give back, so I joined the fire service.
Okay.
And while I was there, I learned there's a thing called a safety engineer.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't make, I hated journalism. It was a trade magazine that I was working on. And so I went to back to graduate school and got a degree in safety engineering from University of Southern California
Okay.
in Virginia, where I was living. It
Hmm.
was a Navy program that they had going. And while I was there, I was introduced to a guy who hired me to become the safety manager for an explosives manufacturing plant.
Hmm.
So I could blow stuff up and then put it out later. So it was kind of this cycle that was going on, and that led to a career. I inadvertently got involved with chemical weapons because we
Hmm.
found some buried at the facility where I was working. Had to get rid
Okay.
of those, and that leads to hazardous materials in general and hazardous waste and like that. So that was my career,
Okay.
and I've always been a weapons guy. I've always been a shooter. So apparently I was in training to become a thriller
A
writer
thriller
and
writer.
didn't know it.
Yeah.
So in 1993, I guess, 94, I started writing what was then my fourth novel.
Hmm.
The first three were just for the drawer. And again, I didn't, becoming a professional writer was not on the radar. It was a nice to have,
Hmm.
but not really a goal.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book. I called it Nathan with an exclamation point. It became Nathan's Run.
Hmm.
And as I was writing it, or as I was getting to the end of this, I realized, because I'm a voracious reader, I think all writers have to be voracious readers. I think it's just kind of hardwired.
Right.
Um, I realized that what I was writing was as good as anything that I was
That
reading.
you were reading. Yeah.
And I I think I was a good judge of that because I never tried to do anything with the first three novels because I knew that they weren't.
Hmm.
So in 1995, early 1995, um, I had this pile of pages that was,
Mhm.
again, ultimately Nathan's Run. It was rejected by 27 agents. Then I found an agent to take me on. She sold it to HarperCollins for just obscene amount of money 3 days later. Then the
Mhm.
movie rights went 2 days after that. And then there were 23 foreign sales,
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, overnight success after a 38-year night. So,
I love
uh,
that. No, but that's how it happens though. For people, when anyone you talk to that's actually gotten, anything like that occur in their writing career, it wasn't they or pretty much isn't ever graduate from college, I'm going to write a book, and all of a sudden everything clicks and it happens. It's typically, and what's funny is when I was reading your bio, because I knew your background, I know we had talked before. I think I'd done an interview with you even years ago. Uh, so I remember that, but I kind of dug in your bio the last couple days. And the thing that struck me is the fourth book thing. There are so many authors I've talked to over the years, or just been at a thriller fest or at a conference, and been like, so what book actually got your foot in the door, got you published? Fourth book is what comes up. It's not the only number, of course, but it's a common thread one. And that was the same thing with me, because I thought when I wrote my first one and I went to Thriller Fest and started pitching it, I was, like, hey, the dump truck is gonna come back at some point and start dumping cash on me, and this is gonna be wonderful. And then I just heard how much I sucked, which none of them said that. But when I was getting all the rejections, emails, if I even got an email, it was always some reason why. And so, okay, I got to write another one. Did that. Do a third one. Did that. Finally, it was the fourth one for me. And it was kind of like, and then as I met other authors in the journey, I start realizing, wow, okay, so I'm not the only one that, for whatever reason, that four, for some of us, is that magic number that all of a sudden gets our foot in the door.
and it makes sense because by then you have written and polished about a 500,000 words,
Absolutely.
in storytelling, maybe 750. It depends on how
Mhm.
long you write.
Right.
And in that amount of time, and of course it's 5 times that because it's got to be revised.
Yes.
So by then you're kind of discovering who you are as a writer and what
Hmm.
your own voice sounds like, and you're past the career throat clearing.
Right.
Um, when I look at the author buddies that I have, and I'm blessed to, I've been doing this a long time, so I know a lot
Hmm.
of folks. Jeffrey Deaver started as a lawyer. So did David Baldacci. So did John Grisham. Tess Gerritsen started as a doctor. So did Doug Lyle. I don't know of any successful, however you define that, and I mean by financially successful,
Sure.
people who made the list. I don't know any of them who started out as a writer.
Yeah.
Some of them started as Mike Connolly, who started out as a beat reporter,
Right.
doing crime reporter, but that ain't the same thing. I mean, that's a
Yep.
whole different layer of writing. I don't know of anybody who started out to become a novelist
Hmm.
and had success. In all fairness, and I don't mean to be patronizing here, but I will because I'm of a certain age. Um,
You've earned
there's
the
not
right
a
to.
lot to write about when I was 25 years old.
Correct.
There
Yeah.
just wasn't. I
Yeah.
didn't have the perspective,
Yep.
and uh, and you don't realize that when you're 25 years old because you are very much the center of your own world, as I
Right.
was. And it's not until you move on that you realize you get certain perspective. The fire department helped me a lot,
Yeah, I'm sure.
walking into the worst moments in people's lives and trying to bring order to chaos. That
Hmm.
certainly brought a degree of perspective.
Yep.
But even then, it's not. I wrote a book during those years that's, well, it sucked less than the ones that preceded it, but it still
Right.
wasn't there. I didn't have
Yep.
my voice, and the breakthrough from this isn't. I feel like I'm hijacking your show here, but
No, you're not. This show's about you, actually. I want your story.
the um, the breakthrough for me on the fourth novel I made, with
Hmm.
Nathan's Run. I made the specific effort to tell a story, to tell the story, the way I would tell it to a friend.
Hmm.
For sitting around the table, obviously got dialogue and that kind of stuff, but just in terms of the narrative voice, it was uncomplicated, it was unsophisticated,
Hmm.
it was me.
Yep.
And that made the difference
That made the
because all of
difference.
a sudden people would say, actually, this is really creepy. I read this and I hear you, good friends of mine, I hear you telling me the story. It's
Mm.
it's kind of
Interesting.
creepy.
Yeah.
And that's what voice is, folks.
Yep. No, absolutely. No, and I think even like for myself, I think the first three, because the first three I did was in a series, but I think I got some perspective and got further into my career, as I kind of looked back and even read some of the stories in the last 3 or 4 years, I think I was trying to give my variation or my version of what like Vince Flynn did and Tom Clancy
Mhm.
did. So I was not their stories, they were unique in my mind at least. They were unique,
Mhm.
yeah, things I'm doing with my characters, unique characters, but I'm just telling a thriller like I had read over the years. Versus for book four, I was getting nowhere after the first three. Just rejection, rejection. I need something new. I need a world that I don't really know as well. And that's where I came up with the concept of me coming up with the Body Man series was literally, and I've told the story before many times, literally me working at a fire sprinkler company, so a little bit tied to your background, a little,
Okay.
walking in one night, turning the alarm off, and just having this idea. And that idea, there's always someone who knows where the bodies are buried. I thought, I'm not going to write a mafia book. That can't be what I'm going to do. But I spent 3 hours of makeshift cleaning. I don't know if I did a good cleaning job that night of fleshing out the idea for a unique character and a unique story, which eventually did get me published. And to this day, I look back at those moments of figuring that out that I'm like, man, that magic in a bottle. With one of the books I put out, I had to the place was called Dybaco Fire Sprinkler. So I made it Dybaco Aviation in outside of DC, but I wanted to use that term and kind of give an homage to the fact of, hey, these book ideas came from this one night of doing a cleaning job, just providing for my family, but it started a writing career, which is pretty amazing.
This is such a cool parallel, Eric, because I was when Nathan's Run, the story, came together in one long drive. I was in
Hmm.
the consulting business and I had flown into Billings, Montana and driven to Bozeman or the other way around. I forget which it
Yeah.
is, but it's this far on the map, but it's really far
It's
when you're
very far.
driving.
Yes.
And so I was in a rental car without a functioning radio. And
Wow.
this is the 90s, right? So we didn't, that was it. If you didn't have
Yeah.
radio, then you had a quiet car.
Right.
And I spent that 6 or 8 hour drive, whatever it is, with this story spinning in my head.
Hmm.
And it just, it kind of spun out to the point that when I finally arrived at this, wherever, I guess it was Billings that I was going to, I couldn't write it down, not the story, but the outline, what happens. I
Yeah.
couldn't write it down fast
Fast
enough
enough.
because it was
Yeah.
just all there.
Right. Same exact. So I had the same thing when I came home from Dybaco that night. I still have the notebook that I used to always get these dollar notebooks at the dollar store or whatever, and I would
Mhm.
map out my characters, map out settings. Now it's all done through this devil machine here because it gets backed up every. It's always on the cloud, but yeah, I wrote down everything I had, and then literally still that was 2017, 18. I didn't actually start writing the book, I think, for another year and a half. But I took time to kind of coalesce of what I wanted to do instead of just like, okay, let me start writing this because I had done that for 3 books. I got this idea, let's write this story, and I didn't put the time and the effort into properly vetting the ideas in my head. So, yeah. It's pretty amazing when that little spark happens for authors. It's unique how it happens, but there is a little bit of continuity in people's stories, and especially like we were talking about before, of having it not be the first thing they've ever done. I interviewed Matthew Quirk recently, who was a very interesting person to talk to, and someone that has, had his Night Agent book, become a streaming series on Netflix. I think they
Mhm.
got season 3 out now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's doing okay.
yeah, he's doing okay, and he started as a reporter though. He started working. He was working, I think, for the Atlantic. So, the background, but he didn't just come out of Harvard, write a novel, and all of a sudden someone gave him, a big wire transfer and said, go sit in San Diego and write books the rest of your life. It's like, no, that's not how that happens. So, and a lot of times, for when that happens to people, that puts a lot of pressure on them. If they're first one out of the gate, and you could probably speak to that, of that first book being successful, the publishing industry doesn't say, good job, we're proud of you. Don't worry about the second one. No.
No,
The second
no,
one
that's
better
actually
be
not even close to what they say.
exactly, exactly. So, well, and that's the other thing too. And I know you've got a great series on YouTube that you've put out there, your own show talking about the industry. That's the side of it that most people that I had to get versed in quickly, and still now to this day, immense amount of time into the industry side of it. Is that you've got to learn that side. Maybe decades ago, you could write a book, hand it off, go back in your cabin, hang out with, Theodore Kaczynski a little more and write your next, manifesto. That doesn't
Ted
happen
was
anymore.
such a fun guy to hang out with.
Oh, he had some great ideas, great ideas. So, but no, you don't can't do that anymore. It doesn't. I remember one of the conversations. Brad Meltzer has been a huge support system to me over the years. And
He's a
again,
great guy. God, Brad is a wonderful guy.
he's the most he's so great. And when I first was talking to him and interacting with him, I'm still a nobody, but I was like real nobody at that point. I mean, but he gave me the time and gave me advice. And even after I got published and I'd ask him questions, one of the things that sticks with me to this day is he told me the hustle never ends, Eric. I don't ever, my hustle doesn't slow down, even though I've sold, and he has sold millions of books.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter. That hustle has to continue if you want to have more books, if you want to have
Because,
continue your career.
because the stakes just get higher,
They do.
right? And um, sophomore syndrome, and I won't dwell on this, but it is kind of an interesting thing that when Nathan's run, um, we're talking millions of dollars here, right? So
Hmm.
well beyond any reasonable dream that anybody could possibly have.
Sure.
And and now it's time to write the second book.
Yep.
Well, shit. What,
How do I
what
top it?
was it about? What was it about this story? I mean, it's a lovely story. I love the story,
Right.
but you can't write the same story again.
Yeah.
So I went through. I got in my head, which was not a place that I was for the first one. Right?
Hmm.
I was having fun. Now I'm thinking too hard. And
Right.
actually, God love her, my wife, now of 41 years, at the time said, Johnny, maybe people just like the way you tell a story. So tell another story,
Hmm.
which sounds so patently obvious,
Yeah. Sounds
but it's
simple.
really not.
Right.
It sort of was, it cleared my head and I said, oh, okay, tell
Hmm.
another story
Yeah.
and just quit thinking about it so much.
Yeah.
And that's where I went.
Well, I think it's so easy for authors to just get stuck in their head of like, oh my goodness, especially, yeah, after yeah, it's such a cliche and everyone says it and you hear it all the time, but you got your whole life to write that first book and then, you've got less than a year to write your second one. And if you didn't nowadays, I know enough about how the industry works. Nowadays, you're almost not getting an agent unless you have the first two books done, or at least the second book rough drafted. That's hard for people to even get their foot in the door. Years ago, maybe, that wasn't the case. So you finish that first book, you turn it in, okay, you're getting published. Okay, what do you do next? And, and it's not, again, like we were saying before, it's not don't worry about it. It's like, no. And so it puts so and then of course for authors too we all struggle with imposter syndrome, of like am I really good at doing this, especially if you go down the rabbit hole of looking at reviews or looking at their sales numbers too deeply. You have to do it, especially if like for myself doing indie publishing as well. I have to know stuff what's going on because I'm spending marketing money. Is it working, all that? But you also have to be able to take a step back and say, I need to tell the story and I need to tell the best version of the story, not let all that other stuff cloud my judgment. Mark Cameron gave me great advice years ago when I first got published, and I don't stick to it. I don't stick to all of it. I stick to some of it, but he said, don't read your reviews and don't look at your sales numbers. Not, at least not initially, especially for sales. And for the reviews, I've kind of stuck with that. I still go out and I'll go to Amazon and I'll grab reviews. And mainly it's for like my Wednesday marketing thing where I put a little blurb on someone's, review and I post it, what you say Wednesday is what I call it. I'll do it for that, but I don't get a lot of negative reviews, but when I have, I've tried to just, if I've looked at them and said, you know what? Okay, that's someone's opinion. I, I can't control that. I'm not going to get bogged down in someone didn't like the book. I bet you a lot of people didn't like the book. They just weren't keyboard heroes to say it.
Well, I disagree with that. I absolutely
Okay.
agree. Don't look at your sales numbers because You can't control it.
You can't
Doesn't
control that.
matter. Um, but the reviews, I would like to say that I don't read them, but I do,
You do read them.
and um, and I'm blessed. I mean, the vast majority I have really, I'm like a 4.5 star kind of review guy. So it's,
Hmm.
and that's lovely. And I have a lot of fans. I've been doing this a long time, so I have a lot of fans that sort of have the knee jerk reaction that, yay, it's the next Gilstrap book, and that's wonderful. Please
Yes.
keep writing them if you're watching this. But every now and then you get that 3 star. The 1 stars are useless. The 1 star is the cover was torn,
Yeah.
some bullshit thing, right?
There's water
So
damage from.
right. So the 1 star reviews I actually don't read because I don't. But the 3 star reviews, there's some gold in there,
Yeah, I
and
can see that.
that's where you find. That's why I stopped putting high level cuss words in my books, because the early books in my career were getting a lot of 3 star reviews.
Mm,
Love the story, but I can't show this to my mom or my wife or my kids or whatever it would be because of the language that was in it.
yeah, that makes
And I
sense.
thought, okay, that's valid, and you don't really need f bombs in your life. I haven't written one of them. I haven't put one of those in a book, and my stuff. It's pretty graphic.
Mm,
It's not gratuitous violence, I don't think, but it's certainly there. These
right.
are guys with guns and doing their thing. There
Yeah.
hasn't been an f bomb in 15 books,
Wow.
and nobody has ever complained
And
that.
no one's saying put more F-bombs in there for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that came from reviews, and
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
had not read them, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, there's so many different ways to do it. And for me, what I've tried to do is kind of absorb as much, especially in talking to other authors, of like, hey, what worked for you, what didn't work for you? Because you might get completely different takes from someone. Well, they're offsetting each other. So what works? Well, it's just a way of planting a seed for me creating, my own brand of like, okay, that worked for him. It didn't work for that person. Maybe it would work though if I tweaked it, So I think that
Mhm.
knowledge base you can get because everyone's career is so varied that I just end up being a student of how do you, how ultimately how do we tell the best story? And then of course at some point, how do I market my story? Which that is, we were talking offline about AI stuff, the marketing side of this business and what's changed just in since even right before I started writing seriously in 2014, it's a different world. I mean, the world itself is different, then also the publishing world has dramatically changed in the past 10, 11 years. And I think with the advent of AI, I've told this to a few people and I have no idea, the specifics yet, but I think 5 to 10 years from now, what you see with traditional publishing is not going to look anything like what you see traditional publishing as we speak today. Just don't know how it's going to change.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Nobody's got my crystal ball is as cloudy as
At least
anybody
from the
else's.
marketing perspective is what I'm saying.
Well, yes, and I really think um, I consider myself blessed to be at the at at the end of the old era. When my first book came out, Bantam, Doubleday, and Dell were all 3 different publishers,
Gotcha.
right? So it was a different world. There was no email. I guess there was email. DARPA was using it, but I mean, for a practical purpose, it
Yeah,
didn't exist.
right.
So that meant that everything happened in slow motion. If
Hmm.
you send off a query letter, it required a stamp, which
Hmm.
would be, I don't know, 50 cents, whatever the hell it was. Plus, the return envelope had to be included.
Right. And
So,
stamped.
so it would
Yes.
be $1 per thing that
Right.
goes out. It's not a lot of money, but every manuscript submission was like 25 bucks, 30
Right.
bucks through FedEx.
Yes.
Um, Things happened in slow motion. My mentor in those early days was Stephen Hunter,
Yeah. Great
who
guy. I've talked to him before a couple times. Great guy.
yeah, he's a hoot,
He's a
and
character.
and he's become more charactery in his later years. I mean, he started out. I love Steve. He's a great guy, but he started out cranky, and he's gotten crankier, and I mean that
Crankier.
only in the best way. He's very
Right.
entertaining. So he was then at the Baltimore Sun
Hmm.
as the film critic, and I knew him. I didn't know him. I got his name through a third party, and I called him at his desk, and he answers the phone. And I started talking. He said, "Please, God, don't ask me to read your manuscript." I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." So, but he kind of, I needed that handhold because there was no internet. What the hell do you do with this pile of pages?
What do you do? Yeah, exactly.
And I had read the books. I read Richard Curtis's book and all of this on what to do, and that's fine. But then there's the rubber meets the road part, and he was just kind to me.
Yeah.
And in I don't know. Rejection is rejection,
Hmm.
but I think that from the agent's point of view or the publisher's point of view, they received letters in the mail, which I'm going to guess I know come a lot more slowly than emails in the email box.
Yeah, absolutely.
My agent it went from getting, 50, 60 queries a week in
Hmm.
the letter days to like 150 a day.
A day. Yeah. Yep.
So the pressure to stand out, not only is that there's so much undercooked crap that people type the end and they send it off, they don't even read
Right.
it. I mean, there's a lot of that.
Yes.
But if you're the next talent, if you're brilliant, how the hell do you rise above the noise?
Yeah. Well, and in a lot of cases too, and I was facing this when I was querying in 2017 until 2020, I guess. Is the reality now is for so many agencies, when you send in that query letter, you might the first gatekeeper you get to might just be an intern that is reading those 100 that come in, and so and they're told to look for certain keywords, but like you said, you could have written the greatest novel of the year, but if your query letter sucked and you didn't in that first couple lines express how great of an idea it was, you went to the slush pile. You're not going to be seen by that agent.
There's a oh, what's his name? Marcus. I've done classes with this guy. It's been a while. I haven't seen him in a while, but his thesis is that a good query letter should be able to sell the worst book in the world.
Hmm.
Right? The idea, the victory of a query letter is to get somebody to say yes.
Yes, correct.
If nobody's reading your stuff, it's not your book, it's your query letter by
Right.
definition, because that's the only thing people are reading.
Yes.
A case in point from 1994, 95, whenever it was, 95. Um, the agent who took me on and led me to outrageous sales had actually rejected the manuscript because she hated the title. Nathan, exclamation point,
Hmm.
like Oliver, Oklahoma. And she, Molly, the agent, no longer my agent, Ann Hawkins is my agent now, but Molly had given it to her secretary, Sherry Holman, to
Mm.
type up, tap, 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 my rejection
Your
letter.
rejection letter. Yeah.
And Sherry noticed that in my query letter, I mentioned that I had gone to William and Mary.
Hmm.
Well, guess where Sherry Holman went to school? So she actually read the synopsis that I had sent.
Hmm.
Molly hadn't. She got as far as the title
Yes, fire the title. Yeah.
and sent it back and said, you might want to take a look at this one.
We can change the title, but you might
Yeah.
want to take a look at this.
That's how capricious
Yeah.
the business is. I mean, if you write, if anyone, not but you, write just the next great book that sounds a lot like a Gilstrap book or a Vince Flynn book, and you send it to my agent, she's going to say no because she represents me and she's not going to put me in competition with another one of her clients.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's
Absolutely.
it, rejection is just get over yourself. If you
Yeah.
haven't been rejected 50, 60, 100, 150 times, you haven't even started.
You haven't.
It's
Yeah.
just
That's what I've told that to people over the years. It's like you can't get too down until you get like your hundredth. When you get your
mhm.
hundredth on that book, and then and I know people that they got their acceptance and they got their request for full manuscript extremely quickly. I ended up getting several really quick, and then I'd have someone. I had one rejection, one pack said it's a really good story, but I can't sell this in this political climate. And I'm looking at the New York Times bestseller list and being like, yeah, I think you probably could. So maybe you don't like it. And of course, then that gets in your head if you're like, what, did they actually like it or are they just BSing you? And again, that's when I quickly got thick skin and just said, hey, if an agent says no, and I think, I'm believing in it and I want to keep pursuing getting this thing published, then that's the wrong agent for me, or,
Right.
and I had with my query letters, I would have so many different authors that I was fortunate to meet from Thriller Fest go over it with me that I felt I had a really tight letter. It's like, okay, if they are truly rejecting it or their interns rejecting it, there's something in the story that's not resonating with what they're looking to sell or whatever. Not necessarily that I wrote a bad query letter and you got to go start from scratch. So, but again, there's just an immense amount to learn in the process. Writing the novel, getting it done, getting it polished, awesome. Trying to get it to the next step is gonna be more work.
And there's a certain reality that you have to embrace that if, in fact, we've talked about Vince, he's not with us anymore. So you go to
Hmm.
Brad Taylor. And if that's, and I love their stuff, and I'm not suggesting that their stuff is impolitic, but they go to places in their novels
Hmm.
that a new writer just won't get away with.
Correct. Yeah.
And why is that? Because he's Brad frickin' Taylor or Brad frickin' Thor,
Yeah.
right? He can do what he wants to do,
They've
and
got
he's got
20
an
New York Times
established.
bestsellers that give them
Yeah,
permission
yeah,
to say stuff I can't say. Absolutely.
and you got a line of I don't know 25,000 readers who have already bought the book as soon as it's announced, right?
Right.
So it's people need to be realistic in terms
Hmm.
of what can be written. A successful sales record goes a long way
Yeah.
toward free free expression
Yeah,
within the industry.
absolutely. Well, and and like with anything in life too, you kind of have to earn your position. It's not just given. So I think so
Mhm.
many times people write a book, and again, I've done it as well, where you write something, you believe in it, and your brain says, well, other people are going to believe in it. Maybe not. And you know what? And if
Right.
they don't, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to handle the rejection? How are you going to handle I know some good authors that they've been published. I know one guy in particular, he had a book out on sub for like 18 months, and he was telling me what the story was about. And I'm like, that sounds really solid. It's like, well, why is this thing not getting, if it's out on submission for that long, what's the problem? And you don't always get a firm answer, always, the details you want of what the problem is. But at some point, you have to decide, okay, do I do this forever and just hope eventually maybe a lesser, a smaller, a publisher, accepts it or, a different editor or okay, do I just go write another story? And most authors, most people I know always are working on the next one. So if that one doesn't work, that's okay. I've got another one in the pipeline. And after that pipeline, because that's what we're supposed to be doing is telling stories, but trying to get those stories into the masses again is why there's a bazillion podcasts and help books and David Morrell's got a book out and Stephen King on writing all these other books of like what are you going to do with this thing?
There is an on rejection's rejection,
Yeah.
and I will be honest with you. I am not without ego. And I wrote a piece for one of these online, it's not Substack, but it's like Substack. I don't want
Hmm.
to mention what it really is, but they rejected it. And I thought, do you know who I am?
What the hell?
but it happens. You go, all right, all right, fine, fine.
Yeah.
That's it's there's an editorial staff. I asked for their input. They said no, and that's great. And I just I have to. I think it's important periodically to get your face slapped by
Yes.
folks. I haven't. I never asked why.
Right.
Then I don't care what the no is no. I don't. The rest of
No
it
is no.
doesn't matter.
Correct. Yes.
Um, but it happens. It just happens. You cannot. If you're in the entertainment business, and that's what this is, whether you're an
Hmm.
actor, singer, writer, whatever, you can't take no. Go drive a bus. This is
Yeah.
just not the right business for you.
Right. Or, if you love writing stories enough and you don't like getting rejection, accept the fact that you're probably going to write stories for your mom and your spouse and whatever, and that's the only ones that are ever going to see it because if you throw it out there in the world, there's going to be people that don't like it. And especially if you get a level of success where, okay, it's selling hundreds of thousands of copies. 100,000 people aren't going to get on Amazon and be like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, no, you're going to get people. You're going to get the 1 stars, which you'll ignore, but you're going to get those 3 star ones that you're like, damn, that is a good reason not to like the book. It's like, oh man, what in the world?
We live it's an interesting, the internet has changed so much because there's so
Yes,
much social media. I won't say the internet, social media has changed
social
so much.
media for sure.
And there are people who will go, the world does not understand my writing. I am obvious. This is my stuff is so much better than what Gilstrap writes. Thrown out there. Actually, I haven't read that,
Hmm.
or J.K. Rowling. J.K.
Sure.
Rowling is such a terrible writer. The 50 Shades of Grey lady, such a terrible writer. I
Yes.
don't know. I'll stipulate. It's not my genre, but
Oh,
they
come on,
sold
John. I
her.
thought that's what you were writing next. I want to talk about that at the end. What in the world?
But they sold a shit ton of books. So I'm a
They did
huge fan
something right.
of Harry Potter and of that. J.K. Rowling has never met an adverb she didn't embrace. It's just
Correct.
so stylistically, yeah. I mean, word for word, you break it down, sentence structure. She's not the best, but man, did she create worlds that are entertaining.
Yes.
So people, there's a lot of complaining about other people's success
Hmm.
instead of introspection on why isn't what I've done not working.
Right. No, you're completely right. Well, and especially in the day and age we live, it's so hard to not have that comparison for people because they were like, well,
Mhm.
I want to be successful like John Gilstrap. I want to be successful like Jack Carr, fill out it's like, okay, you're not probably, and especially you're not if you can't figure out what you're doing, if you can't take criticism, absorb it, pivot at some point because if you think you're going to get there and the first person that slams the door in your face and says you're not John Gilstrap or you're not Brad Thor, how are you going to handle that? Are you going to crumble? Is that going to be your one novel you wrote and you'll never write another one because so much of your self-worth was put in whether someone else wanted it? So yeah, it's fascinating, especially from my perspective. The great thing I had, I'll say real quick, is the first person I hired to edit a book before, because I wanted to have it edited before it went. This is the Body Man.
Mhm.
Before I went trying to get an agent, I sent to this guy, Adam Hamdy, actually recommended someone. Adam's been a jewel for my career. Um, I sent it to this editor, and before he even read it, we got on the phone, and he said, I got a question for you. I was like, yeah, what's up? He goes, if I tell you this book shouldn't or can't be published, and you can't fix it, would you write another book or would that or you would just die on this tree? I was like, dude, I will continue to write books, hopefully until my brain stops working properly and maybe past that point, whether or not they sell. That's not why I do these things. I don't want to write a book because I expect a new career or wealth or all that. I have stories I want to share and I want to get better at telling those stories. So that will not stop me. Your rejection or this isn't good enough, it will just make me go do the next book better. And he goes, I'll edit your book. I was like, okay, cool, awesome. And he did a great job doing it.
The you touch on it, and I keep going back to the entertainment business because that's what
Hmm.
we do. That's what I do. I do not write important fiction. I don't write literature.
Right.
I write stories. I write
Hmm.
diversion. I've got 31 books out there now,
Yeah.
so I'm doing okay. But the idea is to distract people and entertain them for,
Yes.
I don't know, 10, 12 hours, whatever it takes to read a book. So whoever is out there that is planning or trying to be, God help you, the next John Gilstrap or the next John Grisham or the next Jack Carr or the next,
Hmm.
stop.
Stop.
Be the first you. It's a
Yep.
cliche. And as I say it, I hear the cliche. But cliches exist for a reason.
They do.
And that's because you're never, Stephen King, you're never going to be somebody else. I deeply emulate Stephen King in his in the way he narrates,
Hmm.
the common language narration of what he does. I emulate Frederick Forsyth in the
Yeah.
structure of the novels. But there's never an attempt to you emulate in the complementary sense, but you never try to duplicate because you can't.
Right.
So stop.
Stop. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Well, hey, we need to jump into Scorched Earth, which is what we're going to talk about. But before we get to telling it, it's pretty amazing that for Jonathan Grave thrillers, this is book 17. Um, Not going to ask you how you got to 17, but how do you keep it fresh? Because I know just the way and you obviously have been able to build this audience over the years with having this series that's, resonated with readers. For people just getting started now, like people I know that have signed with Thomas and Mercer, you got three books most of the time with Thomas and Mercer. Even if they're successful books, they say, okay, go do another series, go do three more. For them, that's their magic number. I think that Amazon or Mercer has said that's kind of where you catch the readers, you build an audience, bring them into another series, get more people, and they've got numbers that justify what they're doing, obviously. But I don't like that in a way because sometimes it does take more than three stories, and you tend to love characters. So you're into book 17. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep yourself motivated to say, I got another one for him today. I got another mission. I got another thing for him to be thrown into.
Well, a couple things here. Yes, 17 books. And I knew the very beginning it was going to be a series,
Hmm.
maybe three. I mean,
Yeah, right.
nobody plots out for this
John, you
many
had
books.
25 in your little outline. Come on now, don't lie.
I, in terms of keeping it fresh, Jonathan, I don't age my characters.
Hmm.
So I don't have to deal with those issues. And that
Yeah.
came directly from a conversation with Michael Connolly
Okay.
back in the day, where he aged Bosch with every book, and now Bosch is like 104 years old.
Right.
You know, um, Mike's a brilliant author,
Yes.
and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. So Jonathan is of an undetermined age,
Hmm.
who uh, they're episodic. They're not. It's not really. It's not a serial. Um,
Hmm.
it's more episodic. Uh, I I've I don't write about politics or current events, but certainly politics and current events influence what I write.
Sure.
The first book came out in 2008 or nine, and so each it's the one thing that goes throughout the books is political corruption,
Hmm.
and that's always there. Um, in terms of keeping it fresh, I don't know. I think I just deeply love the characters so much,
Hmm.
and I get to explore with them. I mean,
Yes.
Vinice Alexander is a character in there, and her son has gone from 13 to 14 over the course of 17 books. So um, I'll be honest with you, Eric. I don't know.
Don't know.
It's
That's
it's one of the things that I find sort of frightening the next time around. I've created a world for Jonathan where he's a freelance hostage rescue specialist,
hmm
but he is also a wealthy guy, and he's the benefactor for Resurrection House, which is the residential home for the children of incarcerated parents.
okay.
So right there, you've got dozens of potential stories that you can
Yes.
tap into.
Yep.
And he's got so in the first book, I intentionally created a lot of opportunities where the story could go, and then I
Hmm.
figured that current events would drive it the rest of
Would
the
drive
way.
it. Yeah.
But there's no way to justify 17 books. There's just not. And there's an 18th under contract. So, there's going to be another one that's coming. I just deeply love the character. I'm comfortable with him. His
Mhm.
support team, Boxers, gets a lot of love letters
Yeah.
from fans. The it's I, it's a very long way of saying I really don't know.
Well, and you and even did you spun off and did Irene Rivers. You took one of your characters and
Mhm.
gave her a novel, which came from that world. And to me, that's the stuff that just I guess my tastes have changed over the years. You grow and things that used to interest you don't as much. I love the world building in novels, and I love the concept, and I'm doing it with mine as well, probably because I enjoy that concept of not just always focused on one character. Hey, you can have a different book that this character is the lead, where the main protagonist might be there, but they're not doing the heavy lifting. Give someone else a time. And that I had a character in one of my books that I haven't done anything with, but I've gotten a lot of response from people saying, when will her book come out? I have no concept for what I'm going to do with this character, but it's open-ended what I could do. And I'm like, yeah, one of these years I need to sit down and just give her her own story. And just for the heck of it, just to have fun with it, and see what I can create. And I love that world building.
Well, and what you're describing, yes, Irene Rivers was the FBI director in the Grave books until she wasn't, and now she's moved to West Virginia, which happens
Hmm.
to be where I live, and so she's got her own series. To me, I don't outline, so every book is sort of a voyage of discovery.
Discover,
That
yeah,
okay, we can do this,
right.
and we'll work it out in the end. Um, but it to me that's exciting. It's
Hmm.
a throwback to the days of childhood where you're for me I would get so involved in being a cowboy or being a soldier or being what all of my play was violent,
Hmm.
thinking back,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
okay.
that that really became my reality for that
Hmm.
time while I was playing.
Yes.
And when I'm writing on a good day, you're in the zone, and that imaginary place is has limitless opportunities, and you get to play with really cool people that I like. It's not for me to judge whether they're cool or not, but apparently they're resonating okay.
Yep.
I just love it, and I do think, and this is across the board. I think if a writer is having a good time writing the book, that comes through in the words.
It does. No, you're 100% right. I think people pick up on that. If you're doing it and it's a chore, you're doing it because you have a contract and it's like, well, this pays my bills. And so I need to put blank and blank character out in the world again.
Mhm.
Readers are way too smart. Maybe you got away with that 25 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. Not anymore.
Right.
They're very intelligent now where they can go, okay, he's just kind of putting this out there and he's not feeling it. So, and the other
Also,
thing too is
and go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry.
No, Jonathan is a modern day. I write modern day westerns
Hmm.
in a way that Jonathan has a very strong moral code. He doesn't. He believes in justice over the law,
Yeah,
which means that there are some laws out there that are intended to within his world. I'm not making a
hmm,
political statement here, but within his world, there are laws that are out there that protect bad guys at the expense of the good guys,
sure.
and he's the guy that goes in and settles that score.
Yeah,
And I think audiences love that. It's sort of the distinctly American Western stranger rides in and saves the day and comes back out. And it's wonderful to write. The
yep,
write with an R. Right always wins out over might
right.
in the books. And I think readers like that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I have a book that's in my hard drive that maybe will see the light of day in some form. I might take stuff out of it, but it's called The Vigilante. And when I wrote it, I've never reread it over the years. 2017, I think I finished the first draft on it, put it away because then I started The Body Man after that, and The Body Man is what got me into the world. Um, I'm gonna go back and reread it one day because I think just remembering what I wrote and parts of it is like, man, there was some substance there, and I probably botched a lot of it up. Maybe I can fix it or do something different with it, but. Yeah, that concept there of trying to right the wrongs and trying to sometimes, it's not a black and white world. There is gray. There's a gray element there, and there's people, um, the gray man. You have a series that's that's based on
Mhm.
Mark's character. So I think plenty of people, whether they want to admit it or not, enjoy that world that's in that gray area. They like to know what the characters are going to do, and maybe the character is crossing a line. And what's interesting is, and I've had some series I've read over the years that I thought the character went too far. And I thought the character really did go from being a protagonist to an antagonist because, like, to me, they can't cross that line and then come back and say, no, no, I really am a good guy. 24 is a good example of that. There was a spot in 24 when Kiefer Sutherland's character kills, and I'm trying to remember exactly what led up to that, but he ends up killing someone. And at that point in my brain, I kept watching the series, but I was like, he's a bad guy. He's not a good guy anymore. He is a bad guy. I'm still agreeing with what he's doing to some degree, but I think he needs to pay for what he did to that character. And, I think he needs to get it almost. So it's fascinating. And that makes it great for readers, I think.
Well, in Scorched Earth,
Yes, let's talk about
which
Scorched Earth.
which is the latest in came out in February, end of February, available to store near you. Um, Jonathan is in a position where he's been all the previous books. He was doing OTR work, off the record work
Hmm.
for Irene Rivers, who was she's not the FBI director anymore, and she took down the presidency of Tony Darmond, who was president from 2008 till whenever that book came out. Right, so it's a long time. So she has this cadre of OTR contractors that she used that are being killed
Hmm.
like one at a time, and it comes. It's Jonathan's turn. Bad choice. And this all leads to a much larger story after we're talking about the opening few chapters of the book.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, in order to extract information, goes to a place that Jonathan says he would never go.
Hmm.
And um, so it's kind of what you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
that thing that happens, and it works. It does everything that he needs it to do, but it actually has changed Jonathan.
Hmm.
He's, I mean, he knows, and
Yeah.
and you can't take it back.
Can't take it
It
back.
was just
Right.
it tipped into from, I don't write graphic stuff, so don't worry about that, folks. But
Hmm.
he tipped into cruelty,
Hmm.
and that's not him, and he knows that's not
That's
him,
not
and
him.
he
Yeah.
can't undo it.
Right.
So this is it's kind of interesting territory to
Hmm.
mine in this book. But
Yeah.
I love asking the questions like, what would you do?
Mhm.
How far will you go? If
Sure.
somebody, I live in the forests of West Virginia, and I have this little dog that she kind of runs the house at this point. We're empty nesters.
Right.
If I caught somebody in the act of actually hurting
All
the
right.
dog, I could see myself going John Wick
Yeah. I was just
on
saying,
it.
what would you, yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's legal. I'm not sure it's morally justifiable, but in
Hmm.
that moment, you're not hurting my dog,
Yeah.
So these are the decisions that we face that
Hmm.
are then judged in a much calmer courtroom
Hmm.
with, and I think that's wonderful space
Yes.
to mine for
Yep.
people. Gets them to think about things that they otherwise wouldn't think about.
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about being a storyteller is you can tell a great story and then you can put some things in there that make people go, what would I do in that situation?
Mhm.
And I think if you can, and that's not everyone's writing style, and not everyone wants to do that. I know I do it. And some people question things that I'll put out like, yeah, where were you going with that? Or how would you? I've had that question asked to me in some of the podcasts, like, okay, in your series, this was happening. What would you do in that situation? It's like, well, so you kind of have the right and the wrong answer sometimes. I know what I would want to do in that. Like, take your example. Someone comes into your property, harms your dog, kills your dog. Well, I know what my knee-jerk reaction want to be. Question is, do I pull back and say, I'm gonna have to make that body go away because I don't want to go to jail for that, but jokingly saying that, but it does make you at least question stuff of like, yeah, how would I handle that situation? And I think a book can entertain you and not be preachy, but also challenge you. Maybe challenge you to question, what do you really believe? And I think that's the fascinating part of telling a story that serves sometimes multiple purposes.
And it just to close that loop, where I live, the nearest deputy is probably 35, 40 minutes away. So, yep, all kinds of options.
You have a
It's all
smorgasbord
cleaned up. Nobody will
available.
know.
Nobody will know. Scratch that. We'll cut that part out of the podcast
Okay,
if
okay,
anything
all right,
happens
that's
down
fine.
the line. No, no, no. I'm
I
kidding.
think it would be reprehensible to hurt somebody for. No, I can't even say it out loud. It's
No, I
it's
don't agree with that. I think sometimes people get it. No, so
a
well,
buddy of mine. I won't steal his thunder. He's another writer. and his grandfather actually was a constable in East Texas way back in the day,
Oh, wow.
and like 40s and 50s,
Hmm.
and there was a again, it's his story to tell, but there was a suspected serial killer that stuff was happening,
Hmm.
and then they stopped. So this buddy of mine, who was of a certain age, was talking to his grandfather, who was beyond a certain age, about all this, and he said, "So, Granddad, what happened to that thing that happened back in the day?"
Hmm.
He said his grandfather just looked at it and said, "Well, son, some folks just need killing." Whoa.
So I won't ask you to say who this one is. I
Huh?
do have one thought though that came to mind. Does this person happen to have a really good mustache?
He does.
I know this. I have met this gentleman, so I won't say his name. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about, and I could
yeah,
see that being
he does.
100% authentic. So I hope he's doing well. I haven't seen him in years. So again, that's kind of the beauty of this being a storyteller, but also being part of this community is you're with like-minded people. You found your tribe, and then you meet people that tell vastly different stories from you, but you still have that connection. And that to me is it's a blessing of doing this that I never saw coming. I kind of I think when I got into this because I came from still in a business background. I have a 9 to 5 job. I always thought it'd be very competitive. Like, okay. John Gilstrap's not going to answer your questions because you're competing with Gilstrap. No, no, you're not. No, once I got into it, I realized how it worked. It's like people don't buy one book a year. I mean, there's some people that might, but doesn't that those people don't matter in the scheme of it anyways, because yeah, you're not going to sell a book to them. But most of the people that really enjoy reading, they love to get a new author. They love to have John Gilstrap say, "Hey, I recommend you read such and such author." And it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have those connections and be able to help other people help spread the word.
Which is how you end up with books that have blurbs on them from
Correct.
other authors. It's uh, I believe, and no, no industry is totally without a-holes, right? But
Sure.
there are precious few, in my experience here. I think it's a very, very giving community,
Hmm.
and particularly when it starts, it's on both sides. You're talking about the Thriller Fest and the bar scene and coming up and all that. You
Hmm.
know, if you come in obnoxious, you're going to be handled in an obnoxious way.
Yes.
But if you come in as just as a guy or a gal, come in, you want to chat and all this, it's come on in,
Come
and
on in.
and who knows what you leave with.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, John, where should people go to get a copy of Scorched Earth and the 17th book in the series, which is pretty amazing.
Well, Scorched Earth is, and I presume you'll pull up a graphic in here when
Absolutely.
it's aired.
There it is.
Scorched Earth is available wherever books are sold. It's a it's a turn for Jonathan. It's
Hmm.
the I think the plot is engaging. It's all about what ultimately happens. What Jonathan uncovers is a plot by a group called the American Jihad that
Hmm.
is trying to, let's say, bring sorrow onto
Hmm.
America. And and because of the way this is the conceit of the books always, well, how come he doesn't call the police? Well, he can't call the police because government officials are involved in
Hmm.
this with this plot. But it was a ball to write. Um, Scorched Earth available wherever books are sold. You can always start at johngilstrap.com. That'll get you on the right way,
There
right
you go.
direction.
And don't forget, after you read it, go leave a rating and review. They help.
Only if you like it. Keep your
Oh,
opinions to yourself if you didn't. But
if you've got a 5-star review, go for it.
there you go. I'll take
Thanks,
four.
John.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.